For Wren, becoming someone else wasn't a trick. It was a sacrament, a prayer of bone and flesh. She called it the weave. It wasn't about vanity or theft. It was about survival. A neglected foster kid could become a forgettable, well-dressed woman to walk out of a grocery store with a full bag. A teenage girl alone on the streets at night could become a large, broad-shouldered man to cross a dark park unmolested. Wren didn't have an identity. She had a wardrobe of them. Her rule was ironclad. Never weave someone you know. The connection was too strong, the pull to lose yourself in their life too dangerous. She was a ghost, wearing borrowed skin. Her current face was Maya, a mid-level analyst with a forgettable smile and a talent for bypassing firewall protocols. She was on the third day of a deep-cover infiltration at Omnicorp, a tech giant so powerful it was practically a sovereign state. Her employer, a shadowy collective of hackers and whistleblowers, wanted one thing: proof of Omnicorp's Project Chimera, a biometric tracking system that could identify anyone anywhere on the planet. A system that could end privacy forever, and end her. She had woven herself into the project's server farm, a cavernous, cold room humming with the breath of a million machines. The final firewall was a physical one, a DNA-coded lock on an isolated server rack, impossible to bypass. Unless you could become the one person whose DNA was keyed to it. Dr. Eris Thorne, the project lead, a man so paranoid he rarely left his sterile, top-floor office. A man Wren had studied for weeks through security footage and stolen personnel files. His slight limp from an old skiing accident, the way he tapped his thumb against his leg when he was thinking, the faint scar through his left eyebrow. She found him finally leaving for the night, heading towards the executive elevators. This was her only chance. In the sterile silence of a janitor's closet, Wren began the weave. It was an agony she was accustomed to, bones realigning with soft cracks, muscle fibers stretching and reforming, skin prickling as it reshaped itself, pores opening and closing, pigment shifting. She focused on the memory of Thorne's walk, the set of his shoulders, the slight asymmetry of his face. She pulled on his tailored suit from the garment bag she'd smuggled in, her new body fitting into it perfectly. She looked in the mirror. Dr. Eris Thorne stared back, his eyes wide with her own fear. She walked into the server room, her heart thudding against Thorne's ribs. The security guard barely glanced up. "Working late, doctor." "Progress waits for no one," Wren said, her voice a perfect match for Thorne's dry, clipped baritone. She reached the isolated server. The DNA scanner glowed a soft blue. She pressed Thorne's, her thumb against it. A needle pricked, drawing a minuscule blood sample. A green light, a soft click, the server door unsealed. Yes, inside was a single, sleek data drive, Project Chimera. She pocketed it and turned to leave. The main light snapped on, blinding her. "Remarkable," a voice said from the doorway. It was the real Dr. Eris Thorne, and he wasn't alone. 4 armed security personnel flanked him, their weapons trained on her. But they weren't normal guards. Their eyes were covered by complex optical scanners that glowed with a faint, sickly yellow light. "Biometric scan flagged an anomaly the moment you entered the room," Thorne said, smiling a thin, cold smile. 2 identical life signs in proximity, a statistical impossibility, until today. Wren stood frozen. She'd been so careful. How? "The optical scanners my men are wearing red thermal, vascular, and subcutaneous signatures," Thorne explained, as if lecturing a slow student. "You got the surface right, a stunning facsimile, but the underlying architecture, the flow of blood in your capillaries, the heat signature of your organs, it's all wrong. You're a doll, not a man." He took a step closer, his eyes gleaming with avaricious curiosity. "We knew a talent of your caliber would be drawn to Chimera. We've been waiting for you. Project Chimera isn't just a tracking system. It's a trap for the one thing we couldn't track. You." Wren's mind raced. She was trapped in the form of her hunter. She couldn't fight. She couldn't run. Thorne pulled a device from his pocket, a pistol-like injector. "A sedative. Then we can have a long, long talk about how you do what you do." He raised the injector. In that moment of absolute terror, Wren broke her oldest rule. She didn't think of a stranger. She thought of the one person whose shape was etched into her soul with the acid of memory, the person she had run from her whole life. Her foster father, Carl, the hulking brute with meaty hands and a cruel smile, the reason she had learned to weave in the first place. The change was instantaneous and violent. It wasn't a careful weave, it was a psychic explosion. Dr. Eris Thorne's form erupted outward. Bones cracked and thickened. Suit seams split. In less than a second, where the slender scientist had stood, now loomed a massive, brutish man with a broken nose and cold, dead eyes. The security guards recoiled in shock, their optical scanners going haywire trying to process the sudden, monstrous shift. But Thorne just laughed. Incredible! A second transformation. The data we're collecting is priceless. He aimed the injector again. Wren, now Carl, didn't try to speak. She just moved. She lunged, not with an analyst's grace, but with a brawler's brutal efficiency. She swatted the injector away, the sound like a gunshot in the humming room. One of the guards fired. A tranquilizer dart buried itself in her, asterisk his asterisk, thick shoulder. She barely felt it. She grabbed the real Dr. Thorne by his lab coat and hurled him into his advancing guards like a ragdoll. They went down in a tangle of limbs and shouted curses. The sedative was starting to burn through her system, a fog creeping into the edges of her vision. She had one chance. She focused not on a person, but on a thing. The smallest, most innocuous thing she could think of. The one thing no biometric scanner in the world would ever flag. A common cockroach. The world dissolved in a final, wrenching spasm of agony. Her massive form collapsed in on itself, bones shrinking, flesh melting, consciousness compressing into a tiny alien bundle of instincts. The guards untangled themselves, helping a furious Dr. Thorne to his feet. "Where is he?" Thorne screamed, scanning the room. "Find him, he can't have just vanished." They searched the server racks, the vents. They never looked down. On the cold, polished floor, a single cockroach scurried, a tiny, sleek data drive clutched in its mandibles. It moved with a purpose no insect should possess, darting into a vent hole in the wall just as the heavy security door slammed shut, sealing the room. Deep in the darkness of the ventilation system, the roach stopped. Its form shimmered, and then, with an exhausted, painful sigh, it became Wren again. She was herself, curled in a fetal position, naked, shivering, and clutching the drive. The tranquilizer was still in her system, but the dose meant for a 200-pound man was diluted in her true form. She had the data. She had escaped. But she had been seen. Her greatest secret was known. They had her scent now. Dr. Thorne hadn't just been trying to catch a spy. He'd been trying to capture a miracle, and he'd gotten a taste. Wren knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. The world of shadows was no longer safe. She had to run, but for the first time, she wasn't just running to hide. She was running from a man who had seen a god and would now burn the world down to cage it. The hunt for the ultimate ghost had begun.